following program is recorded live and intended for all audiences.
Bears Hour Live, Bears Hour Live. 1 straight hour of Bears talk with Bears Girl and that draft Dr. Phil guy. Monday through Friday, the barroom's got you covered. AHL plays the tags, cause Fuller's got you smothered. Draft Dr. Phil, it's always hit sticks. Splitting double teams like 96 to Heem Hicks. Our line keeps growing, Mitchell keeps throwing dimes on time, but in the window breeze blowing. No denying that this show is in collaboration with a fan. Bears Girl moderating, Dr. Phil is the man. Bears Hour Live, Bears Hour Live. 1 straight hour of Bears talk with Bears Girl and that draft Dr. Phil guy.
Our goal tomorrow is to win a division. Tomorrow we have to protect number 17, and that's it offensively.
Sight to throw to Newsom, and touchdown! He got it in the corner of the end zone. The Browns have won the championship. The Browns have won the division championship. Another cardiac finish. The Browns win. They go into the playoffs. Final score in Cincinnati. The Browns 27, the Bengals 24.
For the second straight season, Sam Rutigliano was named Coach of the Year. But for the first time, the Browns had a new name to go with Cardiac Kids. They now could be called champions of the best division in football.
I got my best line of the year, man. Got my best line of the year. Bum Phillips knocked on the wrong ball.
Hello, Bears fans. This is Bears Hour Live with Draft Dr. Phil. And as you can tell from our introduction, we have a very, very special VHL tonight. My name is Bears Girl, coming to you from Toronto, Canada. And even this far away, I can sense and feel the emotion that my partner, Draft Dr. Phil, is going through, as he is about to begin the most significant interview of his career. I'll let Phil take it from here, and I'll monitor the comments and questions our barflies are posting in our mixlr.com chat room. Phil, my friend, it's all yours.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight, I am blessed, and honestly, you are blessed. Quite frankly, I'm a little emotional, as you said, Bears Girl, is our next guest, as you know, and you could hear in the tremendous open that the super producer Aldo gave us. He's a 2-time winner of the prestigious NFL Coach of the Year award, a football historian by the way of Brooklyn, New York, who's coached this great game of football on every level of the sport, high school, college, NFL Europe, as well as obviously the NFL, former Cleveland Browns head coach who now covers the NFL and the Browns as a football analyst on WEWS ABC in Cleveland. A man I love and respect above most others, and a man I also call Uncle Sam, Coach Sam Rutigliano. Welcome to Bears Hour Live, and thank you so much for blessing the audience and myself with your time.
Well, it's a pleasure. It's kind of bringing me back to the good old days. It was a wonderful opportunity. You know, I was in the NFL for 25 years and with 4 different teams, and 3 out of 4 of those teams had Hall of Fame coaches, and I was very fortunate to come to Cleveland, which when I got to Cleveland, I had Paul Brown and Blanton Kaya for 24 years. There was 1 losing season, and I hope right now that with the new regime here in Cleveland, because we've won in the last 32 games, we've won 1. So we don't have to do very much to get it to be better. But this town now, since the Browns left for 3 years, and they came back about 18 or 20 years ago, but with all the losing seasons and all the new coaches and all the new ownerships and so forth, 73,000 people in the last 20 years still fill that stadium. It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable, and our fan base obviously is the charter franchise in Chicago, which you...
Well, Chicago's got the same, when you think about the history about where Chicago is, Cleveland was right alongside of them.
Oh, absolutely. But tonight, because you're talking about new regimes all the time, the Bears have a new regime, and really, you came into Cleveland as a new head coach, as a former offensive coordinator. How hard is it for a first-time head coach transitioning from the offensive coordinator position like Coach Matt Nagy in Chicago is having to do right now?
Well, I think that the thing that helped me really was I was 8 years in high school, and that's really where I learned how to teach, and then I went to 3 different colleges, and so I had a really good background, and I worked for some really good people, especially in the time that I was an assistant coach at Denver Broncos, New England Patriots, New York Jets, and the New Orleans Saints, and so I was ready. And a lot of times right now, young guys don't have that kind of experience. And I really think that, as I said, I'll repeat myself, but the time that I spent in high school, I mean, I had to teach. And that's what, I don't consider myself a great coach, but that's when you look at some of the great coaches in the history of this game, they were all great teachers. They all had people understood exactly where they were coming from. So talent is God-given, but character is a matter of choice. And the thing, see, because as a teacher, you see things in certain players that no one else sees. Something inside the guy. He wants to win badly. When winning or losing is on the line, that's when you see the quality of the player. That's more important than talent.
Let me ask you this.
That's unbelievable, but it's true.
I know it's true, and we come from coaching trees here, and led by you, the boss man from Brooklyn. But what is the most important ingredient in your mind that a new head coach, even if he's a young guy, has to implement when he's taking over a new NFL team?
Well, he's got to make sure, number one, that he has spent enough time, like I did, that you're going to hire the right people. Make sure that there's a triangle. On the top of the triangle, there's the president, and on the base of the triangle is the general manager, and on the other base of the triangle is the head coach, that you have consistency and you're on the same page. Everybody is, you never saw a jockey carry a horse across the finish line. You got to have talent. That's the most important thing. And you got to have people around you that can help you, and then that comes from that triangle. And obviously with the owner involved that way.
How much does the head coach get involved, or should he be involved in making the final 53-man roster in your mind?
You got to be kidding. Nothing's more important than that.
Right.
When I came to Cleveland, and I was here for 3 days, and then finally on the third day, I said to the owner and the general manager that I have a base now of 5 deep on all the different positions as I go to hire the staff. And when I hired the staff, I'll repeat myself, that I and the staff will do the most important thing, and that we will select the players. As an example, at that time, Brian Sipe was a 13th round draft choice. And the owner and the general manager said to me that he can't play. I said, well, that's exactly what I just told you. I am going to make that decision. And 2 years later, he was the most valuable player in the NFL. You know, listen to this. Tom Brady was the 199th pick. Brian Sipe was the 13th pick. Joe Montana was the third. Steve Young was the second. Drew Brees was the second. Johnny Unitas was a free agent. Dan Marino was the 32nd. So, you know, quarterback's like a tea bag. You don't know what you got to get them in hot water. So when nobody has the answer, even today.
Well, speaking of young,
you got to find out. You got to find out what he's made of.
Right.
You know, what he's made of inside, and then you got to have a staff that, you know, offensively, defensively, special teams, everybody's on the same page. And you know, I spent 11 years with 4 different teams, and I had a list all that time, because I said to myself, by the time, as an assistant coach, by the time I hit mid-40s, if I'm not a head coach, I'm going back to college because I want to be a head coach. And then just about that time, I was fortunate enough to get the job here in Cleveland with the, as I said to you before, when I got here, it was Paul Brown and Blanton Collier. 24 years, they had one losing season.
Wow.
That's the background, and
history kind of flip-flop.
And the people are still here.
Yeah.
That's why can you imagine for the last 20 years that they filled the stadium every single year?
Well, it's the greatest game in the world, and you know that because you coached in NFL Europe. You were in Barcelona and Scotland. You've done it all. But you mentioned.
Well, let me tell you something. The 2 years that I spent at Lafayette High School.
Yep.
Were the two best years that I had. You know, one of our guys is married 50 years, and I'm going to be going up to Connecticut to see him this weekend, and so just like your brother, you know, they made me a coach. That's what really, that was, I mean, it was only 2 years, and then I was off for other high schools and then the colleges. But when I got the head coaching job at that level with the Browns, I always went back to those 2 years, how much it was when I went to Lafayette, and Harry Ostro was a great, great coach, and I learned from him, and you have to be a great teacher, and I hope that's what I was.
Well, you talked about putting a tea bag, comparing it to quarterbacks, putting them in the hot water. We have a young second-year quarterback. You know him because he grew up in your backyard.
Yeah, he grew up. He lives He lives right in where I live in Cleveland. He's a great kid. And he only played. He went to North Carolina, but I don't think he played, but just 1 year.
Right. He only started
I think
1
that.
year.
I think he's going to. I think he's got all the different qualities you're looking for. You know, but he's got that thing that's indefinable inside. You know, he's a winner.
Right. You could see the competitive spirit, that the game isn't bigger than him. I know a lot of fans were watching him this weekend, and the running back, they're running a snake route. He's got to get across the face of the linebacker because the quarterback's throwing to the spot. The kid is lazy in the route. It's an interception. Mitch Trubisky comes into the sideline, and this is the first time the fan base has seen him get fired up, but he's upset because you're installing this whole new philosophy, coach, and the guy's not in the right place. Do you like that kind of passion out of a quarterback on the sideline, getting fired up, wanting this thing?
Oh, yeah, I think, there's there's nothing. They're the most important position, and that's what's hurt Cleveland so much. The most important position is the quarterback position. You've got to get that. That with look at Pittsburgh and look at Cincinnati and look at Baltimore, the three teams that we play in our division, and there's Flacco and all the quarterbacks there, and Roethlisberger, 13 years, 13 years, and we're going right now with a quarterback that was at Buffalo, and then a young guy from May. That's from what's his name? I'm losing him. Anyway,
what's the guy?
The guy that came from Oklahoma. He's the number 1 draft choice.
Oh, Baker Mayfield.
He's going to sit for a year. Yeah.
He's
going to sit for a year. So we're going to see how it goes.
Come in there.
Yeah.
How important, as a play caller yourself, as an offensive guy that called plays and you were a head coach, is that relationship between a Matt Nagy and a Mitch Trubisky?
Yeah, I think for me, when I came, Brian Sipe was. We sat down and we talked, and he said that he wanted to call the plays, and I think that that he really was a smart guy, and he did a fantastic job, for us when I was here the 7 years with him. So I don't know that you could do that all the time, but I was fortunate to be able to do that, and he did a great job. And then when it was situations like we were on a goal line, or we want to go for it on 3rd down or 4th down or things like that, and I was involved with him during the course of the entire week. I was involved with him before the game. I was involved with him at halftime. I was involved with him, when the game was over. So it was something that he had the ability to do that, and it helped me a lot. But not a lot of places can do that.
Was it a friendship?
No, it was kind of not so much a friendship as to we both talked, and we both looked, and we both kind of knew what we wanted to do, and it was a good matchup for me.
Coach, I got to ask you, because you obviously 2-time Coach of the Year, won the big games, and you've lost big games, but I got to ask you to give your opinion on this new tackling rule, and is the NFL doing a disservice to the game in your mind? I think that that's big. Because I'm watching it now, and I just can't understand, because it. I think I think it's really going to hurt defensive football. Mm-hmm. And you're going to see it, and you're seeing it now in preseason and so forth. Guys don't wrap anymore. They don't tackle cornerbacks and safeties who have to be great tacklers. I mean, and the game is, it's not the same. And I think they're trying to do what they're trying to do, and I don't think it's going to help. And in my day, you had 5 years to play 4 years. So when a guy came out of college, even if he didn't graduate, he had played in 56 games. Now a guy comes out after 1 year. A guy comes out after 2 years. I mean, how in the world can you give? How in the world can the quarterback from Oklahoma come here? Yeah, and play against in our first game in a couple of weeks against Ben Roethlisberger, who has played 13 years. I mean, what are we talking about? No.
It's a joke.
Yeah, it is. But when you look at these rule changes and the collective bargaining agreement and
I think the game is changing, and it's not the way it was when I first came in.
Was it changing?
And I'm glad, even though they're all millionaires, I don't care about the money. I'm glad I coached when I coached.
That's my answer then.
Yep.
You talk about great teachers. How important for Chicago was it keeping a Vic Fangio on as a veteran defensive coordinator with a young coach who's never been a head coach on any level, and now he's going to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears? How important was it for him to keep Vic?
Oh, well, I think that was probably the most important thing that he can do, and then you gotta check your ego at the door. Mm-hmm. Check your ego at the door, and know that you got a guy that I was fortunate enough to have good coaches around me, and they had some of them had been head coaches themselves, and so during the course of the 11 years that I was an assistant with 4 different teams, I was always making sure when I went to the Senior Bowl, I went to different places to watch coaches. I had my list ready to go when I left New Orleans to come to Cleveland.
Yeah, coaching.
And it was very important.
Coaching for fan bases and especially in Chicago, obviously Cleveland, they're similar.
Yeah, Cleveland and Chicago, they go way back. They're about the same type of,
the fan bases have the
fan base is unbelievable.
Yes, both fan bases have the passion. I know, and our fans are Bears fans, so they're listening. And Coach Sam, if you can't understand, Uncle is 85 years old. He's coached 4 decades of football. He lives in Cleveland, loves the Browns, and loves the NFL and what it is. And that's what we're doing tonight, to give you what a head coach like Matt Nagy and the whole NFL is going through. And as we chart our way through preseason, and I was going to say, Coach, a lot of fans don't get the importance of coaching anymore and how just these guys become fantasy football guys, how many points they're going to get, and the highlight shows. But the reality is what you said, teaching and coaching the technique, even more so because of the lack of practice time, becomes so important.
Well, the question you asked before, right now, listen, maybe it was too much, but we were 4 to 6 weeks of two-a-days.
Right, exactly.
I mean, right now, when as I watch it now, because I do, on radio and television and so forth. I mean, you can see that they're so far behind in tackling on defense, so far behind in blocking on offense. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just, you can't do it in the time that they give you. I mean, I went through high school, I went through colleges, I went through 5 different teams in the NFL. There was always two-a-days. There were always time to get it done. Can you imagine us 4 to 6 weeks going two-a-days and matching up what you're talking about right now and what they're doing? Nobody is ready. And it's very difficult physically for them.
Yeah, because they're not. Coach Nagy used this word. Apparently, we used it all the time. They're not calloused up to the process of tackling at full speed. So they get out there, and there's more injuries. So the CBA, to me, and this union that's one of the weakest of all the sports, has done them a disservice by saying, "Listen, we're going to give you this, no practice. Wow, yeah, let's sign up. But guess what? You need practice, and you need guys that are on the football field." I'm watching.
Well, you're seeing now the injury rate as opposed to in my day.
God. Two-a-days. You're saying what two-a-days are, folks? If you don't know, that means a 3-hour practice from 8 a.m. till 11, then a break for lunch. Come back at 1:30 or 2, and we're going to do another 3 hours. So we're going to get everything in, whether it be offense, defense, whatever.
And then for 6 weeks.
For 6 weeks straight. And how many injuries and players did you lose for ACLs? It was a rarity. It's unbelievable how the NFL and football in itself, it's like government and politics. Sometimes they make these laws that chop off their nose despite their face. And I think in this case, especially talking to you and coming from where we come from with the East Coast football and what it means and what have you and the teachings of it, this is really something that's setting this game back because it's sloppy, technique is off, and you have to have the best teachers.
Yeah, I'm afraid there's nothing we can do, but it is really, when I think about my time, I just don't know how they can get it done now. And now they got 25 coaches on the staff.
They got a coach to coach the young
coaches. That's right. Oh, my gosh.
Coach, as you look at preseason, fans take preseason games and the performances literally. How much are they really showing you of what they're doing, and how important are the actual scrimmages to analyze the talent that you want to have on the 53-man roster?
Well, right now they have 4 preseason games. Now listen to this. Now the Browns now have had so many changes like the general manager, the owner of the Browns has been here for 5 years. He's fired 4 presidents, 4 general managers, and 4 coaches. So every year you're trying to. There's something new, and you can't now. As I said before, you can't go 2-a-days. You don't have that much time. So the quarterback Tyrone, who came from Buffalo, is in the first game. In the first game he was 5 times. He had 5 times. In the second game he went. I'm talking about 5 times.
5 series, 5 snaps.
No, just 5.
Snaps.
1 series 5 times. Then he had 3 series, and now I don't know how much he's going to do this Thursday or what he'll do in the following week. I mean, how in the world, when we got 52 people coming here that weren't here last year, and there's over 98 people? I mean, how do you find the time without being able to do the things you and I have talked about scrimmaging and playing another team and so forth? How do you make that? I mean, some of the decisions are very easy, but how about the ones that, backups guys or guys on special teams and so forth? I mean, I don't know how they do it and do a good job, and that's why I say I'm glad I did it when I did it, because we had everything we needed.
Coach,
it was a lot of fun.
We have a kid who's a first-round pick, 7th choice overall, Kevin White, wide receiver. Just to your point, I'm piggybacking off of. This kid has played in 5 games over the last 3 years. His contract is up. They put they didn't take the choice of keeping him for the 5th-year option. They waived that right. The kid comes into the first preseason game. The Bears have 5 preseason games because they had the Hall of Fame game. He didn't play 1 snap. Not 1 snap. They bubble wrapped him. Then the next game, he's playing in a few snaps. And the problem with this is, to your point, you're just not able to assess these players appropriately in game action. Everybody's great in the NFL. Everybody's good in practice.
Everybody in shorts and all that. when the bullets start to fly, that's what you want to find out.
And to your point, that's the problem I have with this CBA, with what they're doing, because you can't appropriately assess these players. Now, keeping on this topic of a first-round pick, Sam, you've been there. How much does politics play into this player getting more slack, if you will, more rope than a guy that you chose in the 5th or 6th round? Do the good teams let the politics throw that out the window, and the bad teams gotta be right about a player? When is it time to move on from a player?
Well, I mean, that's a good question, but the one thing that you have to understand is that, like I talked to you before, Brady. If Belichick was such a great coach, why did Tom Brady 199th pick in the draft? And so, it's a crapshoot. But you gotta, what I looked for was what the guy was made of. What kind of a person he was, and was he a guy that was going to be a winner? When he checked his ego at the door. That was very, very important. As I talked to coaches who went out and to scout players, and the people that were scouts that scouted players, and that's when we went into the draft and we were on the board and how we wanted people. I always wanted to make sure that the guy's a quality guy. He's going to give you everything you got and so forth. And as I said, Brady, Sipe, Montana, Young, Breeze, Unitas, Marino. I mean, none of them were number ones.
Right.
And it's still the same. It's that you've got to find that it's that inner light that the guy is going to give you everything he's got, and the people around him will be able to really, I'm talking about the quarterback now, will be able to see what kind of talent he has, and they're going to give you more than they ever thought they could give you.
Well, I think this kid in Chicago has that passion.
That's good.
I'm seeing the technique, everything you want in a young quarterback. I'm seeing it, and we got, obviously we got 2 more preseason games into the season.
Yeah.
But I was in Cleveland with you at the fortunate time, sit it down with you, and you said something to me that stuck with me about personnel, and it was, the guy could be an Adonis, but if he doesn't have the confidence between his ears,
that's right,
he can't play this game. And when we were talking about Kevin White, that's the issue I see, Sam. I think when you're nervous as a wide receiver and you don't want the football type of guy that's going to be consistent. I mean, you put out receivers in Cleveland in your day that didn't run the fastest 40, that nobody wanted, and you were successful in throwing the football because they wanted the win and they wanted the football. And I think when you look at this kid, the Bears were able to pick up in the second round and trade it into the second round, Anthony Miller out of Memphis. Here's a kid that's the polar opposite of what you see out of a Kevin White. And that discussion we had totally stood with me with this confidence, and talk about that in a wide receiver.
Well, it's kind of interesting because there are all different types, but I think the key to me was always guys that they're not going to drop any passes, and when they're going inside, they don't worry about that linebacker, or they don't worry about that cornerback, and as I said, I could go down a list of receivers that I had were 5th round draft choices, free agents, but they had that quality. They just, it's indefinable.
Right, and to your point, it's something you could see, but it's hard to define. And that's why sometimes for people and fans, they get caught up in 40 times and statistics.
Well, I had a guy named Dave Logan, who was a 5th round draft choice. I had a guy named Reggie Rucker, who was a free agent, because I was lucky. But my tight end, who's the general manager now at the Baltimore Colts.
You got to tell that story, because you guys scouted him as a receiver, correct?
Well, I was with Hank Stram in New Orleans, and he was playing at Alabama. So every Saturday when we had home games, I watched him. And so Ozzie Newsome was a wishbone split end. So he had about 29 passes, and he ran back punts. So, but I watched him. So when I got the job at Cleveland, we had 2 number 1 draft choices. So the first was a 13th round pick, and he was a linebacker from UCLA, and from USC.
Yes.
Clay Matthews. So we also had a pick on the 28th. So before the draft started, I sent my offensive tight end and wide receiver coach to Alabama. I said, I want you to go down to Alabama and talk to Bear Bryant, but I want you to introduce yourself to Ozzie Newsome, and I want to see if he's got a big butt, because if he's got a big butt, I'm going to draft him. So I drafted him, made him a tight end, 13 years, Hall of Fame.
Unbelievable story. And
he could catch a BB in the dark.
Yes, a Hall of Famer, and that is so important. Now, let me ask you, not taking anything away from an offensive coordinator, Mike Helfrich, but Nagy has gone on the record as saying he's going to be calling plays in Chicago, but he has a offensive coordinator from the college game who's bringing some of his philosophy. How difficult is that going to be in the relationship with the team? You have a young OC who's got to learn the new head coach's style and playbook. Is that something that could be seamless depending on the relationship there?
Well, I think it depends on the relationship, and making sure that, the guy has got the kind of experience and he's been through what he needs to be through, like when your defensive, whether it's a defensive linebacker coach or secondary coach who's going to call the plays, or myself when I let it go to, it's finding out what they're made of, and it's finding out, how that they can get it done. That's the important thing, because a lot of guys can't. A lot of guys I know that they were really good coaches on the field and they get things done, but they just didn't have the ability to go further to be able to be the offensive coordinator. But he could be great as a secondary coach or a defensive linebacker coach or a defensive line coach. But and that's that. And as you go through it, like I did, with the 4 teams for 11 years, I got to know so many people. So I had a nice list, and I really had a lot of good people working with me in my 7 years with Cleveland.
Well, I could say this from experience. Not only are you a great teacher and a great coach, but you're just a fabulous human being. And I know you're up late, and I don't blow smoke. I love this man so much. I got one last question for you, because I know it's late. And this is an important one, so I want you to think about how I'm asking it, because the history of Matt Nagy is that he was an offensive coordinator.
Who's this?
Matt Nagy, the head coach of the Bears now. He was a former quarterback, played in the Arena League, went under Andy Reid, and then worked his way up to offensive coordinator with Andy Reid over with the Kansas City Chiefs. Andy Reid called him the most prepared and probably the best young football coach he's ever coached with. So how important for him as an offensive coordinator, a play caller, coming into the Chicago Bears, because he's made it a point, Sam, to say several times, I got to do this different, because now I got to focus on the defense and the special teams and everything. Is that a mistake by him as the head coach? And should he just now in his first year focus on the offense, or is that what you would do?
Well, the thing that I did was, obviously I coached the secondary with the New York Jets, but all the other 4 teams I coached, tight ends, wide receivers, and so forth. I think so. I was more on the offensive side, so I paid attention to make sure that the defensive coach was going to call the defensive plays, and I was going to hire a guy that I knew, and so forth and so on, and that mine was a little different because the biggest key of all is the game and who's going to call the plays, and Brian Sipe was able to do that. But in today's world, his background is now at Chicago. His background is in offense, so he should get the defensive coach to make sure he's going to be able to do his job, and the special teams coach the same thing, and then pretty much stay mostly on the offensive side, which is what I did.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for too, because it really threw caution in the wind when I heard him saying that. As a coach, I was concerned that he's going to try to be too much everywhere and not.
No, the worst thing he could do right now is to want to get it with the defensive coach, want to get it with the special teams coach. And believe me, now that he has become a head coach, he'll realize how important it is to get those people around him to be able to do that. And the thing that he did the best, that's where he should be, and that's what I did.
Coach, you knocked it out of the park. That's what I wanted to hear, and you always bring it. I so appreciate you coming on.
Well, look, thanks. This was it was great. I really I'm happy that I was able to do it, and I wish you the best, and give it my best to your gang, your wife, and family, and good luck.
Sam, before you go, we've had about 35 people listening live to you right now, all touched and moved and inspired by your memories and your experience. And they all submitted a bunch of questions, but we're only going to share one. If you have 30 seconds to answer. Brian Quinn, B. Diddy, wants to know, do you consider the Ravens the real Browns?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Did you want me to say something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, ask.
The question from our chat room is, do you consider the Ravens to be the real Browns?
Oh, you mean the Baltimore Ravens?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, what's the question?
He wants to know, because they moved the Browns to Baltimore.
Do
you consider them the real Browns?
Well, that's a good question, because the owner of the Browns, after I was gone, when he left and went to Baltimore, he told me that that they finally won the Super Bowl at Baltimore. And he said to me, I wish that I'm so sorry that I left Cleveland, and I wish that I could take what I gave to Baltimore and bring it back to Cleveland.
Wow.
This was Art Modell said that.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I was as I said to you earlier, I'll finish with this. I was the fifth head coach in the Cleveland Browns, and Paul Brown, Blanton Collier, 24 years, one losing season. I mean, it was just so great to come to a place like this, and now we're trying to get it back, because it's just absolutely was a terrible run of different people and so forth, and I hope they can get it back, because, as I said to you before, through all of it, in the last 18 to 20 years, 73,000 people still come every Sunday. I don't know that could be true in the other 31 teams. Okay, listen, God bless. Take care.
We love you. Thank you so much.
Love you too.
Bye now.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Can I take him, please?
Yeah, you want to take him?
Can I just borrow him for a weekend?
To be able to sit down with him, and to tell the audience, we had confusion, because we thought, for some reason, Ohio is under Midwestern time. So Sam is thinking 9 o'clock, because I'm like, it's 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock East. I didn't say 10 o'clock East. So that's why he was like, we woke him up. He was half asleep. But what a great human being and a great person. And I appreciated him coming on the show and sharing his stories and breaking it down for the fan of what a head coach has to go through to get through this and get the 53 and make these tough decisions. I think you learned about the importance of loyalty and coaching and teaching and the value of a young quarterback in the position of trust. So I really enjoyed myself talking to him.
Well, like I said to Sam, we had over 35 and still do listeners in the chat room, and they can't get enough of Sam. I have, I don't know, probably as many comments about Sam in this interview as you do shout-outs on 100 Proof.
Well, speaking of 100 Proof, you know, we got to get into some Bears football. I know Sam is focused because he covers the Browns, so he came on here for me and for the family that we have on this show to give a former coach's perspective on this. And I think, and I'm glad you guys absorbed the kind of human being and the kind of person he is. And it's honestly, I wish he was more awake because that we didn't wake him up, so to speak, because he would have been firing all these great one-liners at you. I love the tea bag. That's great.
So did the chat room. Some of them didn't take it anywhere else, and others did.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
So do we want to break some Bears football news?
Yeah, I'm waiting.
All right, so let me just pull this up real quick. Let's get some updates on some of the injuries that came out of the game on Saturday night. Mark Grody at Mark Grody Sports indicated earlier today that it looks like a right ankle sprain for Bears tight end Adam Shaheen, the severity of which is not completely clear yet. Any thoughts on that, Phil?
Yeah, we got a very deeply concerned about it because I think this football player is an essential part of what they want to do offensively, and to help take that safety and that linebacker out of there just makes little man Cohen and Trey Burton that much dangerous to have that kind of big, strong, athletic tight end running down the middle with those soft hands. And when you saw it in the second preseason game, I was so excited to see him play against Denver, and then to see that injury while I was with the Mott's crew, I was having a hard time in such a great place to have a good time because I was so pissed off that Adam Shaheen had gotten hurt. And it looked bad to me when you see that leg and that toe stick in the turf, BG. You start to worry about, is that an Achilles? Because he got up gingerly limping, and that was the concern I had, because if it's like the Achilles, he's done for the year, and that's a tough injury to come back from. So I got to be honest, I was happy when it's just an ankle when Ian Rappaport came out with his report, but now, like, why aren't we getting an update? That could just be me that I'm reading into this, but I'm less concerned, but I'm not out of the woods yet, because I really, truly believe this kid is going to be something special.
So, Phil, I'm going to just give you a quick heads up from what the chat room is experiencing. They're wondering if you could either speak a little louder or move closer to your mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was totally away from my mic over here. Is that better, VG?
That is better.
See, what happened is I had to get a new mic because I had issues in the family with young twins playing with mine and pulling a wire from the mic and one pulling the mic the other way, and then Dad found it. So that's the true story. So right now I'm using another mic, but I hope you could they hear me better now? Is there thumbs up in the chat room?
Thumbs up in the chat room that it is much, much, much better. And ironically, as you got louder, our dear friend Shane Marsaw just said, "Got a jet, peeps."
Well, of course he does. He's got to deliver the mail, and he's got to prepare himself for Mr. Russell Baxter tomorrow. So,
actually, I'm going to break some news that I just got a message while we were recording with Sam that Russell has a conflict for tomorrow. So once we're done taping, I will take a look at what that is and see if it's just a change in time or a change in date.
We hope he doesn't back out,
I don't think so. It could just be a conflict.
If I have to send a couple scouts to see if he has a big butt down over there, I'll move him to tight end.
It's almost like you were in the chat room. We had all kinds of big butt conversation going on earlier tonight.
Well, I could just sense it because when you talk to Sam, it's just straight, honest, and completely what he means is what he means. There's no hidden story behind it. So, Well,
now we know that you not blowing smoke is part of your family lineage.
Exactly. And, I got to start talking about this. We talked about Kevin White a little bit and his play. We haven't talked about the game very much, but there's been a lot of chatter, I'll say. And first thing I want to address to get out of the way is the Leonard Floyd situation. At this point, you have to be concerned. And
breaking my news.
I got to keep it 100. I don't think it's any news to anybody because anybody that wears blue, orange, and white knows that now, again, your most needed position in the offseason, and here's your best pass rusher, is injured. The other guy, Aaron Lynch, hasn't even taken a snap. So he's your big signing to go along with Leonard Floyd, and you're sitting there and you're wondering how you're going to handle this. Now, yes, there's plenty of different ways we've talked about the scheming, but you can't just scheme everything and get pass rush that way. There has to be an edge. There has to be some sense to threaten quarterbacks. And when you're going up against an Aaron Rodgers who likes his best plays are when he leaks out of the pocket, scampers to his right or his left, and throws deep down the field or across the middle for big gains. You need athletes on the run that are able to disrupt the pocket, to keep them in the pocket and be sound in their technique. And right now, you got to be concerned. You've seen flashes of an Isaiah Irving who's also got hurt. You've seen flashes at a ballet and what have you, but really the lights aren't on. And you look at Denver and their defensive line was humming and they're coming after you. And that's to my other point, BG. And I'll get there in a second. I just think something has to be done. You have $6 million in cap space. Something needs to be done. I know there's rumors about Khalil Mack. There's veterans out there. There's other players that have shown potential that you might have to move a 5th or 6th round pick to get a young, prosperous type of pass rusher, edge guy, or a player. You might have to trade someone because it is an issue. Don't get it twisted. You can't just wait till all the cuts and find some kid off the scrap heap. You need to find someone that your scouts have assessed that can help this team, because right now Skinny Boy Floyd and always hurt Lynch aren't giving you anything. And I know the old man Vic Fangio isn't going to be happy that guys are injured. Now, it's only a finger, and I'll hear that stuff. And I'll hear more excuses for Leonard Floyd. So all I'm saying is let's hope he gets on the field, because the way I heard Nagy BG say it, it was hope. We hope he's there for Green Bay. What are you talking? Wrap up your freaking arm, wrap up your whole goddamn wrist and arm, and get out there. Get out there. What are you here for? You broke a finger. You fractured a finger. I don't know how there's hope. It should have been, oh, he'll be there. And that's what I hope to hear, because I know I think Roy Robb said it, who, by the way, is an ascending football player. And that could be the answer in this, is that kid moves to outside linebacker, defensive end, and you see a lot of odd fronts with him playing the defensive end that rushes, because this is a man right now. This is a guy that's getting after it and is growing. And I got to say that could be a move that we could see coming up. And that's just what I see on tape after watching the game and what I see the need is. Because Sam Acho, Edebale, I don't know. I honestly don't know. And the other thing I wanted to address tonight is what I addressed with Sam, and he seemed to back me up 100%. And people getting on Mitch Trubisky about his passion on the sideline. Listen, if you want a guy that doesn't care, you had Jay Cutler, right? You don't care. He's going to just squirk his neck or whatever. We don't know what's in his head. I believed it. I believed in Jay's talent. I got fooled by John Fox. I think Jay could have helped Jay if he had what you saw Mitch Trubisky have on the sideline. That he's fired up because he's learning and he's expecting a player to know their assignment and to give 110%. And so let me say this to the naysayer and the person that doesn't understand it, and that's fine. You can disagree with me. But if you think Tariq Cohen is going to run that route ever again like he ran it that night, you're fooling yourself. I think not only are you going to see a better Tariq Cohen, I think you're going to see a better all-around football team. Because let me say this. Guess who's getting the fingers pointed at him? We're already seeing what I said was going to happen back in April. That because it's the year of Trubisky, this media market is going to be ready to pounce on him every opportunity they could possibly get. So if you don't think he feels the pressure, if you don't think he cares, if you don't think he hears the outside noise, then you're fooling yourself again, because we all are human beings. And you want a quarterback that loves the game and is going to be competitive, that is going to drive his teammates to be the best they possibly can be, that is going to tell somebody to get the F out of the huddle because they don't know their assignment, and say to the coach, get somebody else in, until something in the personnel department leaves politics out of football decisions and starts playing the best players that are on your football team, because Chicago has not done that. So finally, I see a guy with fire and passion. He's getting ripped. You want to rip Mitch? Rip him on losing focus on the snap, with Snapgate and all of that going on. Everybody wanted to blame Cody Whitehair, but it took me all of 1 second in the play to know it was on Mitch. And you take ownership of that and you move on, because guess what, family? It's preseason, and these are scrimmages to get mistakes out. You heard Sam talk about 2-a-days, 6 hours of football a day. That's not even including meetings at night to go over it. It was a different time and a different philosophy. And now we have this to compete with. So every rep should be had by Mitch Trubisky. So going into this weekend, don't see a good play by Mitch and say, all right, I've seen enough. No, he needs to learn. He needs 3 quarters with his first team offense. And I'll tell you right now, watching the tape, Bobby Massey and Cush could have stayed on the bus. They shouldn't have even showed up. And they have a lot to answer to, because it's disappointing, because you want that continuity. You didn't even see James Daniels until the third quarter. So I don't know what's going on. I have full faith in Harry Hiestand, and I think you're definitely going to see some answers to personnel come this Saturday when the Bears take on Who are they playing this Saturday? Jesus Christ, it just dropped out of my mind.
I just had it handy. Hold on.
Kansas City.
Kansas City Chiefs, the rivalry. How could I forget? I just had it. So when you see that this weekend, you're going to see a lot of the personnel and the battle coming to a close, because by next week in the final preseason game, they're going to have their depth chart shown, one series and out.
So, Phil, I want to break some other news coming out of the Bears locker room today. Bears safety DeAndre Hall has been suspended for week 1 for violating the NFL policy and program for substance abuse. He is currently fighting for a roster spot.
Yeah, it is a disappointing display on his part. It comes at a terrible time, because here's a guy that I was ready to talk about on 100 Proof in our chat and discussion about players that are bearing up. This is a guy that I was ready to talk about, and it's ascending. So to have this kind of distraction that he's going to be suspended 1 game, it's selfish, to be perfectly honest. How else can you deem that? Whatever you've decided to do, you've done it because you're selfish to you and not understanding the importance you are in a competition to make the 53-man roster. Nothing is given. And with a new staff and a new direction, I'm going to be interested in how they handle that situation and if he makes the 53-man roster, because I don't know the rule. I believe that they can put him as a roster designation due to suspension, thus carry another player for a week if they want to decide to keep him on the 53-man roster. So how they play that is going to be very telling. But BG, let's face it, this is a disappointing thing, because a young football player helping out this football team, not a good look. Not a good look at all.
Not a good look, and unfortunately, not necessarily the first time he has been in some conflict or hot water. Apparently, in 2017, he was arrested and cited for disorderly conduct, public intoxication, and interference with the police.
Yeah, if you start seeing a pattern, how many strikes do you give a player? You know, that's especially when this player has yet to rise to the occasion. He's shown flashes for me. I said it in the offseason. He's a guy you can't forget. I think his place would be at safety. And look at him. He's somebody who has been very physical. He's been fearless. He's maybe a little too talky and chatty, but I'll take that, because it's been something we've been lacking on our defense. So to have this come up and be the second time, because yes, you're right, he did, I think, do something at his old college, in this old college town, and do something like ridiculous. Then now you come again and you're doing this with a new head coach. For me, it's going to be interesting how Nagy handles this type of situation now as the head coach. And let's face it, we'll be honest, if Brian Urlacher did this, he'd have as many chances as he wants. This stuff happens in the NFL. We see it all the time. We see it on the high school level. We see it everywhere. These guys that are jokes, that don't take it seriously, or domestic violence or drugs and all this other stuff, and they get second, third, and fourth chances because of how talented they are. So how Nagy handles this situation is going to be very telling for me, based on him being a new head coach. Is he going to use well, we forgive you, this kid's talented, we want to keep him, or not? And it's unfortunate that you got to have another distraction on this football team.
Well, we have barflies in the chat room who pull receipts almost as good as I do, because back in 2017, according to Cedar Falls Police, officers observed and then responded to a disturbance apparently outside of a local bar. A bouncer there told police that he was assaulted after a fight broke out inside. Hall did not respond to police instructions, apparently spit in the officers' faces, according to the affidavit filed. And police say an officer had to use a taser on Hall's legs in order to get him into the squad car. Not a good look.
This kid has some problems with handling himself. So Sam talked about it tonight. You guys always hear me talking about it because I come from that tree that you're looking for good people. You're looking for leaders that are guys that are loyal, that are going to do everything in their power for the team. The Mitchell Trubisky on the sideline emotion, sign me up for. This guy being selfish and getting a free pass or however they're going to handle it, I don't know how. I don't know how you can continue to give people chances and think that they're going to change. If you don't change, I could guess you can give them 3 strikes and you're out. But, I mean, that's it. If you can't do it, you got to move on. And it's unfortunate. It really is, because this is a guy that I feel like really could give you snaps and be something. I mean, you looked at – Shane tweeted it out. He read my mind again. I'm in a barbecue with Mott's, Monsters of the Tri-State. I see Eddie Jackson come up to make a play, and I'm going to put it up this week. I just haven't had time. And he made a business decision. Now, I don't know if Eddie's worried about the tackling rule and whatever, or what have you. That just goes to my point that the rule's terrible. But in the case of assessing talent, Eddie Jackson coming up, and this kid's got a lot of love and a lot of hype coming into the season. To define yourself in tackling like that in any game. I mean, I've seen flag football, players playing flag come up and hit somebody harder than Eddie Jackson decided to hit. That was awful. It was just, I was embarrassed for him. That's how bad it was. That hopefully the defense, I know Vic Fangio is not going to tolerate that. So here's an opportunity to use a kid like Hall, who BG's not going to come up and put somebody and catch somebody and let them carry them for 3, 4, 5 yards and not, I mean, that's where this, and now I know Hall can practice with the team. He could play in the preseason and then it starts. But let's be honest. You're preparing for Green Bay, and if you're not doing it right.
I agree with you there, Phil, and so does most of the chat room. So we don't usually do shout-outs on Bears Hour Live, but I gotta do a couple tonight, Phil. The first is to Coach Sam, a truly historic figure in the NFL, and to have him grace our bar room is a highlight that I will treasure. My second shout-out is to you, Phil, for allowing your family to join this barroom family tonight and to be present and a part of that special interview. Before closing, I want to thank the Barflies who are still with us in our chat room and for all of those who popped by tonight and their interaction. This show will be posted in podcast form on Tuesday morning, and we ask that you please share it on your social media outlets. This is what some of you had to say. Chris Armstrong visited us tonight, and she said, grateful to have Uncle Sam on board tonight. Bilbo Baggins was in the house, and he said, Phil is always prepared with questions. Kudos to you for doing your homework with these interviews. I was explaining to my wife one of the reasons I love podcasts so much is that you seem to get the real version of the guests, not some canned bull they toss at the national media syndicates. Bilbo also said, Uncle Sam had me doing an attitude adjustment right there. This is good stuff. Air Chair in the house, and he says, thank you, Sam and Phil, for bringing him on and sharing family time with us Bears fans. Bobby Phelan in the house, and he says, Sam's the man, the cardiac king. Hair Bear says, I could listen to Sam all night. Michael Hall 8 was a first-time listener in our chat room, and he says this was amazing. Air Jared 54 also points out that Sam might be the only person that can get a word in with Phil.
I think there's been a few others that have been able to do. Greg Braggs, I think, may have the that's a record award.
So I want to remind all of you that Bears 100 Proof will be on your podcast stream on Wednesday, and you'll hear an exclusive interview with former Bears defensive lineman Alex Brown. And I just confirmed moments ago that FootballGuru.com founder Russell Baxter will be stopping by just a little later than we had initially scheduled. He'll be having a drink with Shane Marsaw, and maybe the two of them can bury the hatchet. On Thursday, your fantasy football geek out there wants to not miss the draft rankings of Joe Mandel and John Santucci on the Fantasy Football Goon Show. And on Friday morning, if you got nothing else to do and you've gotten through all of those podcasts, guess what? We're back here live on mixlr.com with the Mike North Advantage. And Mike has some very special breaking news that he will share with the Barroom family, and many of you will be interested in what that is. Phil, I'm going to turn it over to you for your final thoughts.
Well, I just want to thank you and the Barflies and Bears fans. You know, Sam is a legendary football coach. He's a legendary teacher, and for him to come on the show and really offer it up to come on and grace us with his knowledge. And from a personal standpoint, I want to share this. You know, I told Aldo today, this is special to me, that there's emotion involved in it. I'm getting emotional now trying to talk about it, but, you know, a man's 85 years old, and my father had such an influence on his coaching career. He talked about Lafayette High School and my dad, and the guy just exudes passion for people. As you could tell how many times he mentioned the Browns fans. You all know, as Bears fans, that same disappointment. Now, we've had more glory recently, as he talked about in the past. They didn't. And so for him to just share that and be with us was very touching to me. I appreciate you all, you know, and your kind words saying that. And really, it'll be something I cherish, because nobody's getting younger. And to be able to say we did that with Sam, who is just a treasure of a football treasure, really. It amazes me, and it really is something I thank you both for, and all of us, and all you Barflies. And the last point I want to say is that I was able to travel with my wife up to New Jersey this past weekend, and I really have to shout out these, again, going back to Sam, the passion of a fan base. Now, I don't make things up. I never will, I just don't. There's no need to. The glory of Chicago Bears football is this show and Bears Barroom. It's built on it. This fanatical heartbeat that you all feel and see, and that's why you tune in and listen to every damn thing Shane, Aldo, BG, or myself have to say, as well as others on this network. But to go there and be welcomed and to be treated like a star at a picnic of passionate Barfly listeners, I got to shout out friend of the show, Jose Scar Morales, for having me there, for inviting me, Bart, for being so open with his home and inviting to us, and all of the people there. And obviously I'm 100 proof we'll get a little taste of it. The super producer, I interviewed a lot of Barfly and had some great things to say about Bears Barroom and the Bears. But I wanted to just let you know, Barflies, that it is amazing. I always say to you, I wear Bears gear. My wife jokes, you all you do is wear Bears stuff. Your whole wardrobe is Bears. So wherever we go, it could be Cape Cod, it could be Florida, South Carolina, Mexico. Everybody from across the way will be like, "Go Bears," or "Da Bears." And it's just a unity of a head shake or a hug or a high five. And to be around a party like that of similar minds and love for Bears Barroom Radio and all of the characters within it, I just want you to know I appreciate you. I thank you. It was an experience like no other, and I can't wait to go back in December because we are all going to the Giants game together. And hopefully that day we can do it live on the air because it was something to be seen. And Jose promises me, as you'll hear, that there's hundreds of more because it rained and it kept people away, but we trooped it out. And I just wanted to take that long time out to just shout out the family of Bears fandom.
That wraps up this edition of Bears Hour Live. We will see you all next week. Bye.
Shout out to Mott's.
Sponsors of the Tri-State. Follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter.
Absolutely.
But not until you follow us too.